On today's primetime local news, a puzzling scene at a local Super Lodge motel today. Police taped off what appears to be blood outside in the snow. And fans mourn the tragic death of Kobe Bryant and his daughter, who were among 9 people killed in a helicopter crash. We've got local reactions.
I had about 30 texts, and just disbelief is kind of the thought process that I was going through.
And a local poet gives tips to students at Rendell Park Elementary School as Literacy Month wraps up. Plus, the Hot Hoops basketball tournament wrapped up this weekend, so who took home the gold?
Prime time local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening, I'm Judy Gabriel. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with a scene that's quite puzzling. Earlier today, police were on scene outside the Super Lodge motel off of Highway 16 on 44th Street. The RCMP was called around 2 a.m. Monday morning and taped off the scene of what appears to be blood outside in the snow. RCMP located an injured male on the road with serious life-threatening injuries. The adult male victim was transported to hospital and later airlifted. Police believe there's no additional concern on public safety, and further details will be released when available. We go now to Southern California, where the investigation into the helicopter crash that killed basketball legend Kobe Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others is starting to take shape. As the world mourns the loss of NBA legend Kobe Bryant, we are learning now details about the helicopter crash that claimed his life. Audio of communication with the helicopter have been released. You can hear the air traffic controller use a warning about the chopper's height.
2 Echo X-ray, you're still too low level for flight following at this time.
Bryant's pilot does not respond to the communication, and a short time later, contact is lost. Survivors and dignitaries gathered in Poland today to mark the liberation of the Auschwitz extermination camp 75 years ago on this day. More than 1 million people died in that one camp, most of them Jews, before it was liberated by Soviet troops. And the Nazi torture was over. Here's Paul Workman with more.
On this day, survivors and their families brought flowers and candles, and they wept. Here at the Wall of Death, where the first executions were carried out. The beginning of a holocaust of massive, methodical, organized killing. It is a moment of commemoration for those who perished and those who came back to bear witness. 75 years now, a significant lapse of time, before a world of dignitaries, including Canada's Governor General.
Zawsze pielęgnować pamięć.
It is an honor, said the President of Poland, to nurture the memory and guard the truth of what happened here. There is a deep sense of reverence to this ceremony because of those who are still alive and willing to return. Batsheva Dagan is an Israeli poet who was sent to Auschwitz in 1943. A number was tattooed on my arm, she said, and it's still as visible today as it was then. They heard stories of heads being shaved and dignity trampled, and a warning from Polish journalist Marian Turski, who was sent here as a teenager.
11 przykazanie: nie bądź obojętny.
Auschwitz didn't suddenly fall from the skies, he said. It came gradually, and it was fueled by indifference. And then they walked down the tracks that brought so many to their deaths here, survivors who are now old and frail and will likely never come back. Paul Workman, CTV News, Auschwitz.
New today are the latest numbers. China is reporting 2,744 cases and 81 deaths. World health officials are on the ground. They're holding an emergency meeting with the Chinese officials assessing the situation and getting new information on the virus, how sick it makes people and what should be done. But it's clear the virus is spread person to person, a reason it has turned up in different countries. Ontario has a second case of the viral infection, but so far, no signs it is spreading person to person in Canada. CTV's Avis Favreau reports.
Canadian health officials have a second case of the new coronavirus infection, the wife of the man now at Toronto's Sunnybrook Hospital. He is in isolation in stable condition. She is at home and not ill.
The second case also reminds us that not all people who contract Wuhan novel coronavirus experience severe symptoms. As of today, she has not been in need of the same acute hospital care required by her husband, who also remains stable.
The couple had arrived at Toronto's Pearson Airport from China January 22nd. The husband had a mild cough. Both had worn masks. The next day, the man was taken to hospital, and health officials are now contacting others on the China Southern Airlines flight CZ311 for signs of illness. Meanwhile, experts stress the likelihood of infection to other Canadians is very low.
As I told my mom and dad this morning, the risk to Canadians as of today is 0.000000. Okay? There is no risk to Canadians as of January 27th.
The emerging picture of this new illness is that the virus is spread by droplets from cough, requiring very close contact. Some cases are clearly severe and deadly, but there are signs most cases seem to be mild. China has sharply restricted travel around Wuhan, locking down some 60 million people to stop further spread of the illness. Among them, some 167 Canadians, like Fiona Dong, who was visiting family and now can't come home.
She's scared, so very terrified by the situation, because every day you see the death toll increased.
Several countries are evacuating their nationals from the region.
I think Canadian government should do the same.
In Ottawa, foreign affairs officials say they're working on it.
We are in contact with a number of Canadians on the ground, providing consular assistance with respect to their specific needs.
Meanwhile, a new national advisory committee will be set up on Tuesday to coordinate Canada's response to the new coronavirus as it likely spreads around the world. Avis Favreau, CTV News, Toronto.
The impact of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna and 7 others passing yesterday is being felt across the world. And here in Lloydminster, it's hitting home, particularly for the basketball community. A day later, teams like the Lakeland Rustlers are still processing the news. Many of the players and coaches credit Bryant as the biggest influence on their love for the game.
When you hear news like that, you kind of assume it like it's fake, like it seemed fake to me. And then as it came through, I had to put my son down, and when I came back, I had about 30 texts, and yeah, disbelief is kind of the thought process that I was going through.
Final seconds, Bryant for the win, bang!
The thing that was always so inspiring is his work ethic, how hard he worked to get better, and his absolute competitive drive to win, which is something that you hope that passes on to other athletes.
I think about Kobe snapping his Achilles and walking to the free throw line and shooting free throws and walking off the court where anybody else would have to be carted off.
The fact that Bryant lost his daughter hits home the most.
Just on his way to a game with his daughter. That's a simple thing that everyone does. It made me hold my daughter a little bit closer last night for sure, and just value how short life is in general.
And for his daughter and everybody else that is involved, it's just a big tragedy.
Last week, the Alberta government announced that they'll be changing the way post-secondary across the province are funded. Lakeland College is one school affected by the changes. Our Jasmine King has more.
The creation of a performance-based funding model to create more accountability for taxpayers and to ensure that graduate outcomes are a priority.
The Alberta government made the announcement on the 20th. Lakeland College, which will be affected by the changes, had meetings over the course of the past few years regarding the new model.
It's something that we've been anticipating for the last 5 years. And I was doing some purging the other day and realized when I first started, 2010, we started talking about performance-based funding. So and we've been looking at different models.
Dr. Alice Wainwright Stewart, president and CEO of Lakeland College, says they are performing well in the categories listed in the new model.
Lakeland has a very good track record on, if you look at some of the media that the media information the minister gave, we're sitting in the 90th percentile in 3 of the KPIs that he identified.
Even with the school performing well, there is still some uneasiness surrounding the funding model.
I think my bigger concern is that government are trying to reduce overall budgets for the post-secondary system. So that would be more my apprehension, to make sure that while there's reductions, that we have opportunities to fix that gap in between. My concern about the gap is that the user pay model will mean things are going to change in Alberta.
Dr. Wainwright Stewart says some of the biggest changes the schools will see are those surrounding the funding gap.
Really looking at tuition, looking how we do business. And we've been very conscious about the Alberta taxpayers' money, and we want to make sure that we're as efficient and as effective. So I see us to continue to be future-driven and make sure that we're tightening up everywhere we can and being very conscious of the money that we spend.
Jasmine King, Primetime Local News.
A local poet spoke to students at Rundle Park Elementary School today as they wrap up Literacy Month. Kira Stiffnick, who published a poetry book with her sister, shared the importance of literacy and love of poetry with the students throughout the morning. She also had the chance to teach the kids the basics of how to write poetry. The kids then got to write a poem with Selfnick and eventually were able to write their own poems.
I think it's really important to show them that it's beyond like persuasive writing and essays. Those are all important, and they definitely have their value in literature, but that poetry, there's not a lot of rules in poetry, and you can make up your own spelling, you can make up your own punctuation, and it just gives you that freedom for creative writing.
This is the final week of Literacy Month at Rundle Park School. Each week, the students focused on different topics, including learning the new vocabulary, poetry, and Indigenous storytelling.
Kids always enjoy having guest speakers, guest readers, things like that. So that's why last week we had guest storytellers. We had Cree elders that came in from Onion Lake. We had Grant Whitstone that was here. So the kids definitely respond to somebody different and see that there's a lot of different avenues that you can read and write.
The school plans on hosting more events to promote different types of literacy with the students next January actually. The development officer from Major Gifts for Stars Air Ambulance gave a presentation at the Rotary Club today. Tammy Beauregard came down from Saskatchewan to talk with the Rotary Club about bringing awareness and ways that residents can support STARS. In 2019, there were 31 missions in Lloydminster, and having a helipad for them to land on was key to helping them with time.
I think it has some contribution to it. Certainly, it does allow a little bit more faster transportation, being able to land right here.
STARS is a nonprofit organization, and Beauregard says every donation counts. It costs $10.5 million to run one base. And now a look at your weather forecast with our Abby St. John.
Thanks, Judy. Well, we are currently under a fog advisory as it is quite foggy out and hopefully dissipating by tomorrow late morning, tomorrow morning, and then it will be a mix of sun and cloud throughout the rest of the day. -7 currently here in Lloydminster with winds coming in from the south at 5 kilometers per hour, making it feel closer to -10 with that wind chill. Across Alberta, -7 also out in Edmonton, -6 in Athabasca, -3 in Cold Lake, -2 in Edson and Rocky Mountain. Mountain House, +2 out in Jasper, -5 in Whitecourt, and -1 in Red Deer. On the Saskatchewan side, -7 in Meadow Lake and Melfort, -6 in Prince Albert, -4 out in Saskatoon, and -5 in North Battleford. North Battleford is also under a fog advisory warning, with their currently fairly cloudy, and then overnight they could experience some flurries into tomorrow morning, hopefully dying off by late or mid to late morning. -6 will be their overnight temperature, with the winds at 9 kilometers per hour coming in from the southeast. And then tomorrow they have a daytime high of -3, fairly cloudy skies, and that wind will be at 7 kilometers per hour coming in from the south-southwest. In Cold Lake overnight, it will be fairly cloudy as they're sitting right now, and tomorrow as well will also be cloudy. Temperature dropping overnight to -7, and that wind will be at 9 kilometers per hour coming in from the south-southwest. And then tomorrow they have a daytime high of -3 and 7 kilometer per hour winds coming in from the west-southwest. Here in Lloydminster overnight, we'll get a little bit of cloudy skies, with that fog still remain, hopefully dying off by tomorrow morning, with the temperature dropping to -10. And then tomorrow we have a daytime high of -5, and the wind will be at 7 kilometers per hour. That high will feel closer to -14 with that wind chill, and we have a low of -10. On Wednesday, it will be a mix of sun and cloud with a high of -4, which will feel closer to -11 with that wind chill, and a low of -11. On Thursday, it will be a fairly sunny day with just a little bit of clouds throughout, with a high of -1, which will feel closer to -13, and a low of -6. That is a look at your 3-day forecast. We'll have more news coming up after the break.
In this week's retrospect, our Abby St. John goes back to 2005, when the SPCA was experiencing an increase in stray dogs and cats. And back in 2004, a group took a unique ride to raise money for a good cause.
Going back to 2005, the Lloydminster SPCA was seeing an increase in dogs and cats needing medical attention from being left in the cold.
The SPCA has been experiencing an unusually busy winter season. The amount of dogs and cats requiring medical care has increased 85% from last year.
Yeah, Dr. Berg.
We don't have a reason why this is happening. It's because of people not taking care of their pets, people not getting their animals spayed or neutered. So we have lots of stray animals running around Lloyd that are getting frozen in the cold weather.
This one's
Some dogs are arriving with their paws frozen to the point the body will detach the limb to let the rest of the body survive. In extreme cases, there is little the SPCA can do.
We do what we can. We medicate to make them in less pain, and then we put them in a non-stressful environment and just hope for the best. Unfortunately, in some cases, we have had to put some down, but it's because it was so severe that it was in the best interest for the animal that we had to do it.
Back in 2004, a group of people went snowmobiling to raise money for breast cancer.
Although the sleds have been silenced for most of this week's trek, it has been the group's most successful campaign yet.
Our goal was to raise $150,000, which would bring us over the $500,000 that we've donated for research already. We are now at $147,000, and we're going to do it.
Although the cold temperatures and snowy conditions have made it impossible for the riders to sled for the last 4 days, they say that snowmobiling is not the point of this journey.
The most important thing about this ride is to bring awareness. Whenever someone finds something very unusual about their bodies, they should not be afraid, and they should go to their doctors.
And we were all really upset about the riding, and I think that's when it dawned on me what it really meant to me, helping people suffering with this disease. We raised an extra $3,000 by Carol throwing us out of the van, putting us on the street, and we went and collected pledges.
For this week's retrospect, I'm Abby St. John.
Retrospect is brought to you by Webb's Machinery. Webb's Machinery, your New Holland dealer in Vermilion, Vegreville, and Lamont.
And now here are your stock market prices for today.
Today's oil prices are brought to you by First General Services.
Welcome back. The snowstorm that pounded Newfoundland's capital earlier this month meant that when stores were finally allowed to reopen last week, milk flew out of the coolers as quickly as employees could restock them. Milk producer Central Dairies planned for the blizzard for completing almost all of their deliveries in advance to the storm, but once stores opened Tuesday after a 4-day hiatus, the inventories dropped. The company added extra trucks to speed up distribution, and even though Wednesday is usually designated for factory maintenance, last week the plant continued production instead. Other locally produced grocery staples such as eggs were also affected by the blizzard and subsequent state of emergency. And now to your agriculture report.
We're a part of less than 5% of Canadian auto body shops and Lloydminster's only locations with certified collision care recognition at City Centre Auto Body.
The junior high Hot Hoops basketball tournament wrapped up this weekend with two out-of-town teams dominating the court and taking home the gold. Our Montana Getty has more.
On the girls' side, the St. Walburg Saints played off against the North Battleford Comp Vikings in a game of fouls. The score stayed tight the entire time, but in the end, the Vikings came out on top, winning 42-39. As a team that has been dominating, this is their 5th tournament gold this season. Team captain Taylor Hanna was fouled out of the game, but she said she has no regrets.
We had a game plan and we stuck to it despite the the trouble and foul.
On the men's side, the John Paul II Crusaders faced off against the Holy Rosary Raiders. The score stayed close for a majority of the game, but with this one, it came down to speed and accuracy. The Crusaders used their speed to get into the zone, and the Raiders aimed to break down the defense with passing before making a basket. The Crusaders won 65-56 and went home with the gold medal. Head coach Nate Juergens mentions that his athletes put in lots of hours to win a tournament like this one.
We came here actually the first week of the season and actually ended up losing to this team. And I said, we're going to play a lot of basketball between now and then, and we're going to get better. And so for them to come and have this towards the end of the season, it's huge. It's really good for them.
Montana Getty, Primetime Local Sports.
Keeping on the hardwood, the Rustlers were back in action this weekend. The weekend was filled with ups and downs. Both of the basketball teams swept their weekend matchups against the King's University Eagles. For the men's team, the 4 points keep them in reach of a playoff spot with 2 games on 4th place Nate. In volleyball, the men's team were swept by Canada's 13th best team, the Naydukes. The men are .500 on the season and 10 points up on 5th place Augustana. The women ran away with their weekend, only dropping 1 set. The sweep gives them 14 straight wins and lone control over 1st place in the North. And now to our weather with our Abby St. John.
Thanks, Evan. Well, taking a look at our satellite radar, Lloydminster is still under that fog advisory, as well as in North Battleford. The Battleford's areas, Maidstone and Macklin, under that same fog advisory. Fairly foggy skies, hopefully dissipating by mid to late morning tomorrow. Just outside of Edmonton, experiencing that mix of freezing rain and snow. No large chances of it hitting here. About a 30% chance that we could see just a little bit of flurries overnight and into tomorrow morning, but nothing too severe. Even on the Saskatchewan side, just fairly cloudier skies and that fog advisory down in the Battleford's area. Taking a look at current temperatures, -7 here in Lloydminster as well as in Meadow Lake, -4 in Isle Cross, Pearslin and Macklin, -5 in North Battleford and in Maidstone, -6 in St. Walburg and in Green Lake. On the Alberta side, -6 in Provost and Marwayne, -4 in Wainwright, Vermilion, St. Paul and Lac La Biche, -5 in Vegreville, -7 out in Edmonton, -2 in Bonnyville and -3 out in Cold Lake. And tomorrow, -5 here in Lloydminster as well as in Marwayne, Lac La Biche and Edmonton, down in Provost as well, -6 in Wainwright, Vermilion, Vegreville and St. Paul, -4 in Bonnyville and -3 out in Cold Lake. On the Saskatchewan side, -2 up in Isle Cross, Green Lake and in Meadow Lake, -3 in Pearslin and North Battleford, -5 in St. Walburg, Maidstone and -3 down in Macklin. Overnight across the region, Meadow Lake, Isle Cross, Pearslin, Unity, Paradise Hill and Bonnyville having fairly heavier cloud coverage. Murnum sitting fairly clear overnight, and then Wainwright and Provost having just a tiny bit of cloud coverage throughout. -7 in Meadow Lake, -6 in Isle Cross, Pearslin, Unity and Paradise Hill, -9 in Bonnyville, -13 in Provost and Wainwright, and -14 in Murnum for your overnight temperatures. Your school day forecast for tomorrow here in Lloydminster at 8 a.m. It'll be -10 and fairly cloudy skies, and the fog could still be hanging around as it should die off by late morning. And then by the time recess rolls around, it'll be -9 and the sun will be out with just cloud coverage as well, mix of sun and cloud. And then by the time lunch rolls around, it'll be -7 with that same mix of sun and cloud. And then by the time school is out, it'll be around -6 and fairly cloudy skies and the low of -10. On Wednesday, it'll be a mix of sun and cloud with a high of -4 and a low of -11. On Thursday, a fairly sunny day with just a little bit of cloud coverage with a high of -1 and a low of -6. On Friday and Saturday, it'll both be a high of 0 and a low of -4. On Friday, it'll be a little bit more sunny with a mix of sun and cloud. Then on Saturday, a fairly cloudy day. On Sunday, it'll also be a fairly cloudy day with a high of 0 and a low of -3. And then on Monday, to start your week off again, we get a little bit cooler. We get into those double-digit colder winter temperatures with a high of -16 and a low of -25 with a mix of sun and cloud. That is a look at your 7-day forecast. We'll have more news and the question of the day coming up after the break.
A sad day for sports fans all over on Sunday and today. People have been talking about this. Obviously, legend NBA star Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi, along with 7 others, died in a helicopter crash on Sunday. And fans from all over the world were mourning. We wanted to hear what your thoughts were on this, and obviously a lot of people talked about it, and it's such a sad thing because his daughter also passed, right? So, and you know, that I think made everyone feel a certain way, and for us too, right? Like, it's just so sad to hear that happened for them and the 7 that passed away.
Yeah, including, you know, the pilot, a father who was also a college baseball coach. His wife and one of their children passed away. And then a mother-daughter duo as well. They were all going to watch Gianna's basketball game, which Kobe Bryant coaches or would be coaching that game. And so it was super tragic to hear, you know, waking up when TMZ broke that it was Kobe who died. People were all over saying this can't be real. Like, why is this real? And then it broke that his daughter was also on board and didn't make it, and no one else survived the crash as well, which makes it even more tragic because that's so many more families and so many more people affected by this tragic loss, not just fans of Kobe, but, you know, members of the other families who lost their loved ones as well are grieving as well.
A sad day and sad thing for everybody, fans included, and the family as well too. But thank you. Let's go to pets right now. Thanks for sending your pets for a chance to win a gift card from the Pet Pad.
We want to see your pets. Send photos of your pet and their name to our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram to have them featured on Pet of the Day. Your name will be entered into a weekly draw for a gift certificate from the Pet Pad.
In studio today with Josh Ryan here, and we're going to be talking about a little bit of somber news happening over the weekend. The world, not just the basketball world, not just the sports world, but the entire world lost one of the great legends in Kobe Bryant, and it's really taking its toll on different people, and really just his effect is becoming even more evident now after his passing here.
Yeah, the comparison that some people had made was his death has transcended not just the sports world, but the entire world, in the same way that when John Lennon passed away many decades ago, it came out of not just the music world. Kobe Bryant was one of those athletes that loved him or hate him, everyone respected him. And even if you weren't into basketball or into sports, you kind of inherently knew what Kobe meant. You know, when people are hanging around the office and they throw a rolled up piece of paper into a garbage bin, everyone knows Kobe. That's from that athlete. And you can't say that about very many athletes. I mean, when you think about Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, other really famous athletes, there's very few that have their name synonymous with sort of a common action that just about everyone has done once in their life. And on top of that, he is one of the all-time greats in the NBA world in terms of his accomplishments and playing for the franchise he did in the Los Angeles Lakers.
For sure, 4th overall in all-time points, being just passed on Saturday by LeBron James. And you mentioned, whether you love him or you hate him, you have to respect him. In their time playing, LeBron and Kobe had quite a bout going, being two of the top players in the NBA. And after retiring, obviously he's taken on an ambassador role there, and he actually congratulated LeBron. That is what I believe is one of the last interactions that the two of them will ever have there. So there's just that respect throughout the entire sports world there, whether it's Tiger Woods, who is a good friend of Kobe, finding out on the 18th hole on Sunday as he walks off, or whoever it may be, Michael Jordan sending out his apologies. Everybody sort of has that respect for Kobe Bryant.
Indeed, and that's something that really sticks with you, that many fan bases obviously hated him because he beat their teams so many times. And no matter what kind of argument you would get into about where he ranks on the greatest of list, myself personally, I'm like a number of other people who thought he was slightly overrated as a player in some aspects. He was more of a top 15 of all time than top 5 of all time. But he had so many huge moments in the NBA playoffs, buzzer-beating threes, that sort of nature. And the fact that he won 5, championships, 2 playoff MVPs, there's not that many guys who have that kind of resume. And he has managed to sort of reshape his image in a way too. Obviously his legacy is complicated because of a sexual assault case against him in Colorado in the early 2000s that basically neither him or the accuser can talk about it now, is the way the settlement worked. So that's always going to be there, and that's what many people thought of for him for a long time. And yet he was able to rehabilitate himself, become more of a family man, win back his wife Vanessa, and has now been a really large presence in his daughter's lives, supported the WNBA, and as you said before, kind of become a true ambassador to the game for this next younger generation of players, in a way that Michael Jordan wasn't really, because Jordan was sort of private with a lot of his life after basketball, whereas Kobe sort of embraced his post-career basketball, even won an Oscar.
Yeah, exactly. Won an Oscar, wrote a book. He was a business owner and supported different groups like the ASAS, which is the After School All-Star Program, to basically provide after-school programs, keeping kids off the street and trying to help better lives in that sense. And I think that just comes down to his heart. That's one thing that he always played with in the basketball world, was heart, and he's known as one of the toughest competitors of all time. One thing that I always think of when I think of Kobe Bryant is when he tore his Achilles tendon, he still got up and he took 2 free throw shots. Most people can't even get up after that moment, but for him to go and make those shots before leaving the game is something else, and I think that alone speaks, so many words about Kobe Bryant there.
Indeed, the memory I'd throw in also is the 60 points to end his career, taking 50 shots to do it in typical Kobe fashion, sort of shooting his way out of a terrible shooting night to then get as many points as he did. And talking to people in the area from Lakeland College and some high school alumni here in Lloyd, there's a lot of people that are just still really stunned even 24 hours later, and I'm not sure this is going to be something that will go away soon, because it does feel weird. It's going to feel very weird to be at see the NBA All-Star Game, see the Lakers if they go to the finals, and not have him courtside to watch it all.
For sure, it will be a tough pill to swallow with the passing of the Black Mamba.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
In studio once again with Josh Ryan, this time to talk about some local sports where we saw some of the Lakeland Rustlers teams. There were some highs and there were some lows throughout this past weekend. And I mean, let's just kick it off, I guess, with some of those highs, starting with the women's volleyball team sweeping their series and really pushing them even further into first place in the ACAC.
Indeed, first place in the North Division, and at this point they're really ranking amongst some of the best teams in the CCAA. 11.6 kills. Kills in volleyball is a very important stat, and they lead the entire ACAC in that department, which includes a nearly undefeated Briarcrest team. So really impressive considering how many new starters they have. Janae Varga obviously has been one of those key ones.
For sure, she's been a centerpiece, being second in aces and third in kills in the entire league. How has she really stepped up from last year?
Well, part of it is the growth, playing for Coach Austin Dyer, but also it's the work she's put in over the last couple of summers as well. She comes from a really good volleyball family. The Vargas starred with the Augustana Vikings before that, so really impressive run from her. An impressive run from the women's basketball team as well. The only team really that had a downer was men's volleyball, but both basketball teams getting the sweep, that's obviously huge for them.
For sure, and for the men's basketball team, they had lots of scoring by depth, I guess you could say, which is really good to see, especially coming down the stretch while they're pushing and trying to stay in those playoff contenders in that sort of 4-5 range there. They're going to really have to push hard to finish off the season and try and stick in the playoffs.
Yeah, and they needed these 2 wins coming off of a tough loss to Keano to kind of get themselves back on that pace. Obviously, playing against Nate will be a big matchup for them because that could be where their playoff fate is decided. But yeah, more depth offensively instead of relying on 1 or 2 guys like Quantez Simmons or a guy like Terrell Murdaugh. They got a little bit of everything from their offense over the weekend, and that bodes well again heading into the rest of the weekend.
Now, Josh, there was one girl on the women's basketball team who really stood out, and that was Jaden Cook, going 4 for 4 from deep. Just talk about her play, I guess, as of late, and specifically this past weekend.
Well, and she's been a player who has been a good depth piece for the Rustlers. This year, she's really put in the work to be a better outside shooter, and it's shown, obviously, specifically this weekend. 4 for 4, 17 points, just was red hot from deep, including a buzzer beater in the first half. When they can get that off the bench or in spurts where she only plays about 20 to 25 minutes a game, getting that kind of production from her can be the difference between losing or winning in a conference championship.
For sure, and players like her are really starting to look like all-stars. And speaking about all-stars, the NHL All-Star Game took place this weekend. Josh, what was your favorite, I guess, between the skills competition and the actual tournament? What was your favorite part of it all?
I think my favorite part of it personally was the sort of tongue-in-cheek, sort of wink-wink, hi, we're making friends dynamic between the Flames and the Oilers players present. Obviously, Draisaitl and Tkachuk combining for a goal there. They're joking about it afterwards. There's essentially a hug-it-out moment between Flames and Oilers players. So people are playing nice for now. I still think there's a lot of tension, and when those 2 teams meet soon, there's going to be some fireworks. But in the meantime, it was kind of fun to see them sort of be cordial for the moment in that All-Star Game.
For sure, and I guess that's what the All-Star Games are all about. Nobody's really trying their very hardest, I guess you could say, which is, in my opinion, one of the downfalls of the All-Star Game.
For sure.
But it does bring out that nice human side of the players like we saw with those 2 connecting. My personal favorite moment from the All-Star Game was during the accuracy shooting. Jacob Slavin won, and he's actually the second D-man to do that since Ray Bork. So that's a pretty big accomplishment for himself in his first All-Star Game there. And there was another All-Star Game, I guess, over the weekend with the Pro Bowl in the NFL. And with more NFL news, Here's our Abby St. John in the last minute of play.
Thanks, guys. The 54th Super Bowl is less than a week away. The Kansas City Chiefs are looking for their first Super Bowl win in 50 years and are projected to do so with the help of quarterback Patrick Mahomes. To do that, they have to beat the San Francisco 49ers defense, which is a big part of what has made the 49ers so explosive this year, with Nick Bosa, who has 32 tackles, 9 sacks, and 1 interception, and Richard Sherman, who sealed the 49ers win last week with the game-ending interception. Their defense needs to add pressure and force turnovers if they want to stop Mahomes. However, the 49ers defense may have a harder time stopping Mahomes and his offense. Mahomes leads the league in most receptions at 30-plus and 40-plus yards and leads in deep pass touchdowns with 13. Mahomes is known for getting the ball out fast, and if needed, he can work around the pocket till he finds his opening. The Chiefs' defense needs to stop the 49ers' run game. Jimmy Garoppolo only threw 8 times last week against the Packers, relying heavily on their run game. Statistically, the Chiefs and 49ers match up pretty well, but I think it will be the Chiefs who will be raising the Lombardi Trophy after a 32-27 finish for your last minute of the play. Taking a look at your 7-day forecast, a high of -5 and a low of -10 for tomorrow. Hopefully the fog dissipating by late morning. And then on Wednesday will be a high of -4, high of -1 on Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all a high of 0. And then on Monday, we get back to those colder double-digit temperatures at -16 to wrap up your 7-day forecast.
Looks good, Abby.
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad for right now, so it's not bad.
I like it. What are you going to do tonight?
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing?
No. There's
One of
nothing
those
to
nights.
do.
When there's nothing to do, there's always something to do.
Well, relaxing. That's about it.
That's huge.
Yes.
Relaxing is huge. I can see you relaxing.
I relax all the time.
Do you cook for yourself? Or do
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, sometimes. Most of the times I will because I have to, but
sometimes.
Yeah.
What's your favorite meal?
Anything with pasta because it's just the easiest to make.
On that note, thank you. We're done for tonight. Thank you for watching this episode. We'll see you again tomorrow.